Harder. Oh, move it around real slow. Don't stop. Oh, I can do this all night. Prove it to me. Faster. More. Deeper. Oh my God. I can feel it. It's going in. Harder. It's almost in. God, it's all the way in.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Chat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time, decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all the information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the Shat the Movies on YouTube, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Gene, if I could just take a moment before we get to tonight's movie, I just wanted to address some questions we've been getting recently in reference to Ash and where she is. Is she okay? She's been missing. So I thought the best thing to do would just be you and I to just discuss with transparency kind of everything that's going on, because people are probably imagining it's another Roger situation or it's something like that. So I wish, honestly, that I had something to tell you guys. The three of us are in 3 different states. If I lived in Ash's city, I would drive down, knock on a door, and we'd sit down and have a conversation. But I can't give an answer because as adults with families and jobs, things come up, things become difficult. Scheduling 3 conflicting sometimes schedules, sneaking in a movie, research, recording, all the stuff that goes with it. It's difficult sometimes. So we've always told each other, if there's a time that you can't do it, just let us know, take a break, and you can come back whenever you want. Because the worst thing you want to do is force somebody into shoehorning this in, fighting with their family, fighting with the kids, the stress. So what we know is as much as you do. Ash has taken some time for family, for work, for whatever. And she's welcome back anytime. She could write us today and say, hey, I want to be in a Beowulf, and she's in. And it's not like I don't want people to be like, oh, you guys aren't checking on your friend. That's not the case. We are reaching out, but sometimes things are personal. And I mean, that's the best, I think, explanation I can give.
Yeah, I think part of the having 3 hosts has always been that there's a higher likelihood that at least 2 are going to be available to the pod, and that's kind of the way we've always done it. And I do want to say thank you to all the people who have reached out on Twitter, on Facebook, asked where Ash is, and also expressed how much they appreciate her having on the podcast, her viewpoints, bringing youth. I do think it's really, really funny that when Ash and I are on, it's like, stop ganging up on Big D. And then when she's gone, they're like, Big D and Gene are just agree on everything.
Yeah, well, maybe Ash was intimidating you.
Instigator, yeah.
Yeah. She was forcing you to gang up on me. But again, thank you everybody for caring. When we have news, we'll let you know. Reach out to her if you know her, if you've contacted her before, find out. But other than that, the train rolls on, Gene. And that's why tonight one of our great listeners, Frank Fall, comes back, and he's the commissioner of RAD. Great messages, great listener, and he said this is a film that is a must in the Pantheon of Shat. So he went in the Pantheon of Shat. So he went all the way back to 89 for the buddy cop comedy action film Tango and Cash.
Hey, I see where Tango and Cash is coming up. Yeah, this is Crew Jones, Frank Falls with another one. This is just more of a guilty pleasure here. Tango and Cash. This is one of those HBO late at night movies. Kind of got me into the buddy cop genre. and of course Teri Hatcher. That's about all I got to say about this one. This is a good one. I'll give her a 2.25 maybe. It ain't rad, but few things are in life. I was thinking maybe next go with Face Off with Gina Gershon. Yeah, anyway, good luck with the movie. Appreciate all you do. Let me know if Face Off has been taken. Later.
So, Frank, yes, Face Off has been commissioned, and it's been commissioned by you. So you are a man of your word. Thank you very much for doing that. And you said this got you into the buddy cop movies. Gene, let's see how well we know him. What specific scene do you think was his favorite? Because I can picture a young Frank on the couch. He's alone, HBO at night. What scene do you think he rewound a couple times?
It's got to be Tango and Cash crashing through the gates in the monster truck, just doing that big jump with the flames and, being reckless as hell. Based on his love for Rad, it's the closest scene to Rad that we've got in this movie.
No, I think you're wrong. I think it's when he's chasing the murder suspect in the beginning of the film through the parking garage. And there is that couple who are going to get busy in the car, and they just decide to go completely nude, which I think would be a little risky, but I can imagine young Frank watching that. Once he's more relaxed, he's gotten the tension out of his shoulders, then he goes to the monster truck final scenes in the film.
I do want to salute Frank's incredibly precise understanding of the wipe scores, because 2.25 is a good score. All too often, if we don't give it a 0 wipe score, people think that we're dogging the movie. 2.25 is better than average. And to me, a better than average movie is certainly worth watching. In fact, I'd say even a slightly below average movie is certainly worth watching, because that still means it has some entertainment value.
Agree. I think that means that it's held up.
Yeah.
That it's still a film worth watching. I think once you get over 3.5, that's when it's like debatable. Are we going to watch this? Are we not going to watch it again? I think that's the threshold.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking about a 30-year-old movie that's still worth watching. I think that's pretty impressive. Well, Tango and Cash is a 1989 buddy cop movie starring Sylvester Stallone, Kurt Russell, Jack Palance, and Teri Hatcher. Stallone and Russell star as Raymond Tango and Gabriel Cash, two rival LAPD narcotics detectives forced to work together after a criminal mastermind frames them for murder. The film had multiple directors during a long and troubled production process that included numerous script rewrites and clashes over creative differences. Tango and Cash was released by Warner Brothers in the U.S. on December 22nd, 1989, making it the final Hollywood release of the 1980s. So Big D, we always ask where you were and what your memories are of the movie. This week is Tango and Cash. What do you got?
So, Gene, I think it's funny that this was the final film of the 80s, because the 80s were like the action over the top, the big oiled up action hero who was indestructible. And it was Arnold and Stallone. These were the films that my friends and I loved, that you would run out and go watch. The Terminators, the Rambos. It was the stuff that a young boy, you wanted an adventure. That was what you went and saw. This is about the time, though, as it's the end of the 80s, that the genre started to get a little bit tired. And there was a transition to like some attempts at comedy that I never got into, because that wasn't why I watched Stallone. This wasn't why I watched Arnold. And so Junior and Twins, people talk about those ravingly. I've never seen them. Jingle All the Way and Last Action Hero, I only remember them for this podcast. Tango and Cash, the only thing that I remembered was the monster truck. So I think it's fitting that the 80s, it's incredible that the entire decade that was defined, I think, by the over-the-top action hero ended with this film, because it was also the end of that era.
One of the things we have to remember as dudes, right, is that in the 80s, those movies like Conan the Barbarian, those movies like Rambo, they appealed to us, of course, because they were like action movies, action dramas, whatever you want to call them. But that wasn't for everybody. And if you're a studio and you've got a big name like a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger, of course you want to go into comedies, because now there's something for the whole family, Chicks can dig it, kids can dig it, grandparents can dig it. Was it a good idea? I don't really think so. But along with this movie marking the end to the 80s and the end to the 80s action star, I think personally, 1988-ish marked a shift when my family learned enough English where we didn't need to watch super basic stuff like missing in action, where if we didn't understand what was going on in the dialogue, we just saw the action happening. We're like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And my family made a hard pendulum swing over to like movies like Dangerous Liaisons. It became very brainy, and mob movies were very into like the more complex the plot, the better. So Tango and Cash just didn't make the cut, didn't make it into our VHS rentals. This was actually my first viewing of the movie. And so I can offer that perspective of the guy who didn't see it until he was in his 40s.
I can only picture the films that your family loved because it was the only ones that you like really could understand or thought you did. And you would tell all your neighbors, oh, I love these films, not knowing what's truly going on. And then you discover and you're like, oh, shit, what have I been watching with my kids all this time?
Yeah, and you put up a Twitter prompt earlier that was kind of asking people, like, who are the top 10 action stars of the 80s? Like, who has to be included in there? And a lot of people came back with Jackie Chan. Kung Fu movies, as you can imagine, you don't need to really understand a whole lot of the dialogue. That was really big, and I didn't realize that when I would go to school, a lot of the other kids weren't watching that.
No.
All right, well, let's strap in to our Urban Assault RV and hit the trailer.
I'll tell you one thing. Whoever set us up is really connected.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Relax. Soak. And don't flatter yourself.
Meet Ray Tango. He likes money,
Easy come, easy go.
but doesn't bother with cash. Meet Gabe Cash. He won't dance around trouble and doesn't mind stepping on toes.
I hate you karate guys.
Two of LA's top rival cops are having a good time staying in rhythm.
You know me, huh?
Yeah, I hear you're the second best cop in LA.
That's funny. I hear the same thing about you.
But they're going to have to work together, even if it kills them.
Like now!
We'll take it.
No,
That's one of a kind.
we won't put a scratch on it. Did you sleep with my sister?
I was so drunk, I don't remember, okay?
Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. Tango and Cash.
Raymond Tango and Gabriel Cash are considered the two best cops in Los Angeles. Different in nearly every way, the rival police lieutenants often make headlines for their large drug busts. Unbeknownst to them, all the shipments actually belong to a single criminal organization headed by Perret, who convinces his associates, Quan and Lopez, that the two officers have become a problem and they need to be taken care of. Believing that having them killed is too quick and easy, Perret develops an elaborate scheme to discredit and humiliate them before finally torturing them to death.
Yeah. So, Gene, when I was putting together that top 10 of like the action heroes of the 80s, it gets to some dispute towards the end whether or not, you know, somebody like, let's say, Jackie Chan should be in there, or let's say even Charles Bronson or Burt Reynolds or Tom Cruise. Those get to be able. Nobody disputes the top two. Stallone and Schwarzenegger, they're the undisputed kings of action movies in the 80s. And as the 90s approached, I never realized what a clear like line it was when it was like a hit movie to when they just stopped working. Because you can only make the explosions bigger and the action crazier, and Schwarzenegger holding somebody by their foot off of a cliff. You know, it gets to a point where it's ridiculous and the studio stopped making money. So they thought, let's pivot, like you said, let's try to go to comedy. And the action comedies, like the first ones were just, I mean, it was a mixed bag across the board. But like Stop or My Mom or Shoot, where Stallone plays a cop whose partner is his mom, I think. There's Oscar, Junior I talked about, or Twins. Hit or miss, don't remember any of them. Them Kindergarten Cop. I think this is the first time that they got that formula correct, where there was some action, comedy, you like the characters. Last Action Hero, we reviewed for this podcast, and it's remembered as a huge bust, as a failed attempt at a movie. But when you watch it as a parody of the entire genre, it is a hit. We loved that movie. And also, I think Demolition Man, another one that worked. And Tango is right on that edge where they're trying to do something that will work, but I don't know that they get the formula right.
I'll probably die on the hill that Arnold Schwarzenegger is hilarious in everything that he does, intentional or not. And I do think it's intentional that he's just a superior comedic actor. But I think you're making the case that Stallone is the better dramatic actor and Arnold is the better comedic actor. Like maybe in this movie, if you had Arnold, it would actually work. Imagine Arnold in some glasses, reading the stock market in prison. That's funny. But I laugh my ass off at Kindergarten Cop. I laugh my ass off at True Lies. I didn't laugh at all during Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. That movie is terrible. I also didn't laugh during Tango and Cash at any point. And that's not to say that Stallone isn't a good actor, because Rocky and Rambo, the work that he did in those movies, both in writing and acting, is incredible. And I think that's something Arnold can never pull off. But in examining who's right for each project, I think Arnold does translate well into comedies. Sylvester Stallone does not.
No, I think without doubt, you can't question Stallone's career. The Academy Awards, Rocky, he's a writer. He's a very intelligent man. So he obviously felt kind of threatened because his main competition, Schwarzenegger's out there killing it. And he's thinking, I'm getting overshadowed here and looking like the worst performer. I have to go try to do it. And he can't do it because I think he takes himself too serious. Arnold seems like the goofball who could laugh at himself. He had to come here. He didn't speak English. People just kind of mock him for his accent. Stallone doesn't seem like he's got that in him to laugh at himself, let alone somebody else laugh at him.
Part of our mission at Shat is to call out the things that haven't aged well in the movies. And a lot of times it's special effects. A lot of times it's thematic. Tango and Cash really forced me to re-examine, of all things, the 80s drug war. It seemed so ridiculous now. At that time, as a kid, I thought, well, yeah, I've been to DARE classes. I understand drugs are bad. They kill people. They ruin communities. We got to bust those drug dealers, right? We got to kick some ass and collect all those briefcases full of coke or tanker trucks full of cocaine. As an adult now, in a state where weed is legal, and I'm sure shrooms are on their way to legalization, all I could think while watching this movie is like, dude, they're doing all this shit for some cocaine. We got Tango. He's fucking shooting up a truck, like shooting through the windshield. You got assassins. They're coming after Cash. There's civilians and cops being endangered left and right. City blocks are fucking exploding. And I'm watching this going, man, it seems like the drug war itself is much more dangerous than the actual drugs. Like, what would happen if people just got access to cocaine?
See, but Perret hints that their enterprise is multi-level. There's guns. There's drugs are a big part. I think there's some sex trafficking and probably prostitution in there, but they focus on the drugs here. And it's comical. Tango's the stock market guy and his friends are pissed. Like, dude, come on, Tango, please. The price of Coke in LA is up like 40%. Can you please let one bust go?
Yeah, you don't wear those Armani suits and those glasses without doing a little tootski yourself.
No, and especially when he does that perfect trope where he like takes the cocaine on his finger and that tanker was filled to the brim with Coke. It comes snowing out. He takes it and tastes it. That's not the first time. He's just trying to explain why he pisses hot on the police drug test. But I want to talk about here, like we're talking about the action comedy or the comedy action. And I'm glad you talked in the beginning about the original script, that it had a more serious tone and it had problems in rewrites. Stallone, who was also the producer, he thought, hey, this is going to be my first step. We're going to get out there. I'm going to be funny. So he started writing like comedic elements and one-liners, and it started to break up the action. But I don't think he can do that. He's good at writing Rocky, like a blue-collar guy from Philly who's going to go out there. Adrian, that seems like him. He can do that. You can't make jokes, Stallone. And it's just like the jokes, they fall flat. For me, it's shit. It's terrible. It starts with he shoots somebody. He says, hey, you look anemic. You're going to need a little iron in your diet. He says, where did you learn to drive? And the answer is Stevie Wonder. Or say, we're on fire. Yeah, we're cooking now. There's an entire string of small dick jokes in the shower. There's Dykes on Bikes, which is Kurt Russell in drag. You get then the fat guy in the cell in the prison farting. There's a few times where I was like, why couldn't you have gone to parodying the action genre, similar to what The Last Action Hero did? They touch on it. We get Rambo as a pussy, so we're showing in world that Stallone is going to make fun of his character. This is a great, great first step. At the end, we're going to get that Predator high five, the bro out. And they stop, look at each other, and look at the camera. And I'm like, you guys were there. You could taste it. Why didn't you just go all in?
So close to greatness.
So close.
There's a TikTok clip of Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and they're talking about how you have to use but and therefore when you're doing your writing. You cannot use and. This happened, and that happened, and that happened. It's either but or therefore. A plot should always advance in a series of contradictions and causations. Dialogue works the same way. You start with the characters, Tango and Cash. You discover their natural speech patterns. They're from two different parts of LA. They talk differently. They live differently. They have different wants. They have different desires. They have different emotions toward police work. And then you work that into things that they would say. In Tango and Cash, like you said, Stallone walks in there. They started with some jokes they wanted to hit. They're like, okay, give me some one-liners, give me some funny things, topical stuff, Stevie Wonder, haha. And then they shoehorn that into the script, and you can feel it. It's cringeworthy.
Yeah, they were so close, man. So close.
Individually informed of a drug deal, the detectives meet for the first time at the location and discover a wiretapped body just as the FBI arrive. Agent Weiler finds Cash's backup pistol with an attached suppressor on the floor and arrests them. At their murder trial, Tango and Cash are incriminated by an audio tape that appears to reveal them shooting the undercover FBI agent after discussing a drug purchase. Despite pleading no contest in exchange for reduced sentences in a minimum security prison, Tango and Cash get supported to a maximum security prison and are housed with criminals they had each arrested.
Gene, the 80s were a simple time. I've already talked about our love of action heroes, patriotic war movies, people getting shot on screen. The other thing that we loved in the 80s, Gene, was the odd couple buddy team up. And we got a bunch of them because once something works, Hollywood's going to give it to you. We had 48 Hours, we had Lethal Weapon, we had Bad Boys, we had Rush Hour, Men in Black, Last Boy Scout, Turner and Hooch, you had Tango and Cash, and you got to pair that like out of control Riggs, with Murtaugh, and they're going to his more disciplined partner. In this, they spell it out for us. They say, one is from Beverly Hills, one is from Central LA, one wears an Armani suit and's polished, the other has wild hair, he's got a $9 t-shirt, he's got an Inspector Gadget gun boot that shoots out the soul. The captain actually says, the downtown clown versus the Beverly Hills WAP. They're leaning into this. And I got a list here because we've talked about my list of action heroes. And the general list that I had here was Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Bruce Willis, Mel Gibson, Harrison Ford, Jean-Claude, Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal, Kurt Russell, and Clint Eastwood. Let's see if we can pair guys up, or maybe even Eddie Murphy. Let's throw him in there. Let's see, can we mix some of these characters together in a way that might work as well as this or a little bit better? Because as much as these two guys are charismatic, I don't think they play off each other as well as some of the other that we get.
I think Bruce Willis and Eddie Murphy would be one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. But you don't do it in an odd couple pairing. Like John McClane and Axel Foley together would just be a fucking cool movie to watch.
See, I think the accents, I want Jean-Claude. Jean-Claude's got to be in mind because he could play action martial artist. You could put him with Eddie Murphy. They don't understand each other. There's a cultural clash.
That's Rush Hour.
Okay. Oh, or we can mix in the old Clint Eastwood. He gets the new hot shot who comes in with the foreign accent, who thinks he's going to rewrite the book.
We almost had Arnold and Van Damme in Predator, but he just was insistent on kickboxing.
Also, Gene, you know that the writer's strike has stretched on now in Hollywood?
I'm aware.
And it doesn't look like it's going to come to any good resolution. So I thought what we would do is try to embrace our AI overlord.
Okay.
So I gave the AI the same task, ChatGPT. This is a new, Gene hates when I do new segments.
God damn it.
So I gave ChatGPT the same challenge that I did for us. I said, okay, let's go back to the 80s. Let's create a buddy. And it came up with a couple good ones. So I'm going to give you two of them, all right? The first one, the movie is called Odd Couple Ops.
All right.
The synopsis: in this high-stake world of international espionage, the two elite agents, Max, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Jack, played by Steven Seagal, couldn't be more different. Max is a hulking, muscle-bound operative known for his brute force and straightforward approach, while Jack is a sly and quick-witted master of disguises and unconventional methods.
Holy shit. Steven Seagal doing disguises.
Yes. How great is that? So I'll just give you a little bit more here. When a global terrorist organization threatens to unleash chaos on the world, Mac and Jack are reluctantly paired up as an unconventional team and bring down the threat. Forced to put their differences aside, they embark on a globe-trotting adventure, leaving a trail of explosions and hilarious mishaps in its wake. And it goes on. It gives you a full synopsis. It says, Odd Couple Ops is an action comedy filled with thrilling set pieces, hilarious banter, and unexpected camaraderie as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Steven Seagal deliver memorable and entertaining on-screen pairing performances.
The amazing thing about this is Steven Seagal could put on any disguise, and I, as a person who's never met Steven Seagal, would know it's Steven Seagal. The way he moves, the shape of him.
Yeah, but him in glasses or him in a mask or in drag, how great would that be?
Okay,
So
I want to put a layer on top of this, right? Because it is 2023, is I want all the disguises to be horrendously offensive. Like, that's his thing, right? Is that every time he shows up on screen, it's a progressively more offensive stereotype.
Like he dressed up like a rabbi. Like
he's just basically like Jerry Lewis, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
So here was the second one that it gave us. And this is called Kick Fury. And the synopsis is, in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by ruthless warlords, two legendary fighters, Jack, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Always a Jack.
Yes, and Rex, played by Chuck Norris, are the last hope for survival. Jack is a nimble and acrobatic martial arts expert known for his lightning-fast kicks and agility. Rex, on the other hand, is a stoic and unyielding force, a master of close combat and firearms.
So we've discovered that AI has a flaw, which is that it wants to name every character Jack, and then the other one has to be a 3-letter name that ends in X.
Rex.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, but I'm all in, man. I'm ready. I'm ready to sign up. Take us over.
But what I don't understand is the backbone of this movie, as you described, is odd couple, buddy cop pairing. It's like they abandoned the formula halfway through the movie, though.
Yeah.
They stopped doing that. And once these guys have been in prison together, they've formed even the slightest bond. They basically become the same person. At no point do their respective talents or perspectives combine to crack the case, right? It's never like, oh, your Beverly Hills highfalutin ways are going to help us do one thing, and your like gritty street ways are going to do another. They just chuckle and then fucking kill everybody.
Exactly. Why not have them use their skills?
Right.
Let's say when instead of it being Cash who goes to the audio file, the guy who's done the mixing, why not have it be somebody who could be computer savvy? Tango shows up. Tango searches through the computer because he's been making trades. Then you send out Cash to the street because he's street smart. Have them combine, because that's what always works. You had Riggs being crazy, Murtaugh being analytical. That's why it works. Here, it's the only difference is an $8 shirt or Armani suit.
And the problems with the writing don't stop there. Like, other than providing a setting for more forced punchlines, I don't understand why Tango and Cash ventured into the court system or into the press. They were very into showing like newspaper headlines. First of all, no newspaper, and I can say this because I'm a former copy chief, no newspaper writes headlines like DA vows to convict rogue cops for murder. There is so much wrong there. First of all, the DA is never going to give you a soundbite like that. Secondly, you can't call them rogue cops in a headline. You're going to get fucking sued for libel. And three, for murder, they're not even charged with fucking murder. So there's a lot going on there. By the way, also, if you look further down on the page underneath that headline, it's an article about cancer research. Like the filmmakers literally didn't bother to write filler copy for the screen. And I am not a big Succession fan. I haven't watched the TV show, but one of the things that was pointed out to me is that that show has such attention to detail on a TV show that when they're flipping through magazines, you see characters from the show in the magazine with relevant copy. It's the least you could do on a multi-million-dollar motion picture.
They're treating Tango and Cash like they're a sports team in town. They're giving their stats.
Yes.
Hey, in Thursday's game, Cash got 4 hookers off the street and found and confiscated 18 pounds of blow.
Did you notice that one of them, Tango had $1 billion drug bust? $1 billion of drugs.
Are they trying? Like, I think the papers are trying to get them killed. You're making them a mark. Why not do home interviews with them, post a picture of their house? You're going to get them killed. And it works if it's a parody. And I'm glad, Gene. Thankfully, the film fast tracks this investigation, this trial, the conviction. And I had to laugh. You get Perret, whose big master Bond plan is he's not going to kill them because that would be easy and make martyrs out of them. Instead, he's going to set them up like rats in a maze to take the fall so that they get disowned. Ha ha, Perret. The last laugh is on you. The seats in the trial are half cops, and all the cops are applauding them. They're bigger heroes than ever. When Cash gives that crazy wild man outburst about this is fucked up, this is bullshit, I'm not taking it, melts down, embarrasses himself, and the cops eat it up. They love it.
Maybe the reason Perret chose this tactic is because both of these guys, their police work lends itself to being set up. First,
He does.
don't leave your gun in a drawer at the precinct. That seems like a very risky place to leave a firearm. Good way to lose track of a gun. Second, never go on a drug bust alone. Like, does LA not have a narcotics division? You're going for a major drug bust by yourself. What are you going to do when you get there? What if there's lots of drugs? You're going to secure them all yourself? What if there's 8 dudes? Going solo seems like a good way to get set up or just plain killed if the bad guy isn't a comic book supervillain. Like, really, all Brett had to do is be like, hey, 10 of you, go in this dark room, hide in the corner, have some rifles, kill these guys. And then I thought Tango's lawyer was pretty good because he somehow gets shooting an FBI agent. That is the crime that they're charged with, shooting an FBI agent, knocked down to manslaughter with 18 months in minimum security. I would take that deal. But then I thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute. No, he's actually a shitty lawyer. Because why is Tango being charged at all? The homicide weapon belongs to Cash. It's not like they both shot the guy. Only one guy shot him.
Oh, but you're there. You're there. If
You can't be charged with manslaughter for being there.
In this town, they do things their own way, Gene. They're off the rails. Look at the way that the police department, we're supposed to believe that Tango and Cash are these great investigators. I've been working on this case for 18 months, 60 months. We don't see any investigation. Their investigation is treated like the captain handing out leads for cold calls. You got Tango's in the hall. He's like, hey, Tango, I got a call. I got a hot one for you here. Yep, just came in. Yep, looks like 18 pounds of methamphetamines. Here you go. Here's the address. And he's like, that's not an investigation. What are you doing? How about you get some backup? And look at the way that they hold interrogations. It's in the officer's locker room. There's a shower there and a set of stalls. And I'm picturing in my head what possible situations could go wrong here. Okay. Maybe there's like a big serial killer in town. They've got him. They've been interrogating him for 18 hours. He's ready to crack until naked cop walks out of the shower right past the interrogations. Like, hey, excuse me. Sorry. Or he's about to confess and you just hear a cop just taking a shit in one of the stalls. It breaks the tension and the guy just recants or goes to trial and says, you can't take my confession. There was a dude taking a piss next to me. I don't think it counts.
The old piss loophole.
It sprayed on my feet. I got distracted.
Once in prison, Tango and Cash are tortured by Perret's henchman Rakeen and a gang of prisoners until Assistant Warden Matt Sikowski rescues them. Sikowski gives them an escape plan, but Tango opts out. Cash finds Sikowski murdered and is pursued by guards until Tango rescues him and they head to the roof. Cash ziplines outside the prison walls, but Tango is attacked by the inmate Face. Tango manages to electrocute Face by knocking him into a transformer before escaping. As Tango and Cash split up, Tango tells Cash he can go to the Cleopatra Club and ask for Catherine if he needs to communicate.
So, Gene, I realize sometimes I need to explain more in depth what's going on for people who, most likely people haven't seen this film in a while. So fill in some of the holes. So they've now been convicted of manslaughter, right? Even though the evidence shows on audio, they both willingly were part of this murder. It wasn't the first. So they get to go to the country club option of Los Angeles prisons. Somewhere along the way, they get rerouted to this hardcore prison dystopian hellhole that is worse than any other prison we've had in Shat the Movie's history. It is in a state of perpetual rioting. There's burning trash cans. There's cups of piss being hurled around. And there's some of the most fantastic. Gene, I know that you love prison rape jokes.
Oh, yeah.
You have a long history of it. We get some of the best ones. In Shawshank, they gave us fresh fish. I'm going to make you squeal. Tango and Cash says, hold my beer. They give us two of the best lines. As they're walking in, looking all attractive, one of the prisoners says, hey, let me load up them bowels. Or, hey, Cash, let me put some brown sugar up your ass. Does this detour the two new police officers and general population? No, they joke. We get some more great comedy talking about how they hate litter and that they forgot their marshmallows for the bonfires. They have a nice, long, intimate, hot shower. We get some ass shots. That was Stallone's decision. They're wearing gold chains. They're making awkward jokes as they're looking at each other's junk. This is a wild prison.
I will say, though, none of these threats was as effective as Popeye asking for some chocho. But Tango Cash seems to ignore the reality that cops look out for their own. Like, I get that people at the prison were bought off, but what about the people transporting them there? Did the transportation part of the Department of Corrections go, wait a second, why are we taking these cops to this fucking shithole? And do I think that some corrections officers might have been paid off and motivated to get our heroes killed? Sure. It's possible. But do I think that overwhelmingly more officers would be dead set on watching over them 24/7 and protecting them? Yes, especially on their first night in the pen. Like, the movie doesn't even have the patience to make it seem like, like in Shawshank, where it takes a while until they could get them alone. It's like night one, they drag them out of their cells, throw them down a fucking laundry chute, and then you got a whole like circus set up down there in the laundry area.
Hey, it's like a combat tank. Like, anybody can come and go.
Yeah.
Prisoners have free reign. I don't think that riot had to do with them. It just was like their weekly riot. But why are you so hell-bent on killing them now? You just went through the whole trial. Have the bus overturn. Give us a fugitive moment. It flips over. They escape. They're chained together. They have to somehow get out of there. But instead, we get this prison from hell. And it is set up with like mazes of like ways to get in and out. It's nuts.
Am I the only one who didn't want to see some bad guys get sucked into a giant fan? Tango and Cash, they're going over this escape plan from the prison. Yeah. The assistant warden, who, by the way, Sikowski, best performance in the movie, he's like, hey, I'm going to shut off that giant fan in the ventilation shaft. Immediately, we know someone's going to get fucking sucked into a ventilation shaft fan. Something's going to go wrong there. We see Cash nearly sucked into it after Face and his crew foil the plan. But Tango comes along, he saves the day, he jams a giant pipe into the fan blades. Okay, so the pipe stops the fan blades. Cash climbs through. The pipe gets dislodged, and the fan reactivates. Earlier in the movie, like seconds earlier, we see Cash, he's holding on for dear life as this fan is sucking him down. He's got a crowbar. He finally loses his grip, but he manages to wedge his feet and get himself out of the way of this fan. But now you've got 6 guards plus Face. They're all standing there on a slippery surface. The fan is running. I'm like screaming, okay, human blender scene, tentacle attack through the toilet. Give me the thing that you promised me. And they just don't give us anything. Everyone's calmly standing there like the fan's not there 8 feet away.
On top of that, it's like a 30-degree incline.
Yeah.
And it's covered in moss and slime. So it's slippery. Did they also have a dog? What? Suck the dog up. So you're holding it with the leash, and the last minute it goes and you just hear...
We can't even talk about continuity errors. In that fight scene in the laundry room, Cash has got a baseball bat. He takes it away from one of the dudes. A second later, the baseball bat's just gone. Why would you let go of a baseball bat in the middle of the fight? Then, when he gets through into the ventilation, he's got a crowbar breaking his way in, which, by the way, I don't know what that whole thing was about. They had like some moldy plaster that he broke through. Crowbar sitting right there. He doesn't have the crowbar. Then seconds later, it's back in his hand again. It's like a video game character.
Why didn't the warden just pick up the phone and say, oh, hello, Governor. How are you? Yes, I am the warden of Prison from Hell. Yes, the utopian rape dungeon. Yeah, that's us. For some reason, Tango and Cash got sent here. I'm pretty sure on the paperwork that, oh, okay, you're going to send over the state police to get them? That's great. Okay, so I'll put the crowbar and the death fan away. But Gene, this prison has multiple security problems. I'm not an escape artist. I'm not an intellectual thinker who's going to pull out blueprints like Andy and dig through behind a poster for years. There are a set of power lines that are running from the top of the building across into a wooded area. It goes over the guard tower, so the guard tower cannot see it. You couldn't bury these lines. There's giant areas with like electrical breakers, and there's spark shooting along the roof. People can come and go as they want. Prisoners in and out of their cell. Face comes in and out. For God's sake, Perrette drives a limo into the prison to observe the cockfight and the beating. Why even bother have gates?
The detectives visit the witnesses who frame them in court. Tango intercepts Weiler, who admits that Rakeen was in charge of the setup. Then he is killed by a car bomb. Cash discovers audio expert Skinner made the incriminating tape and starts destroying Skinner's expensive equipment until Skinner agrees to help exonerate them. Cash finds Kiki, Tango's sister, who helps him evade police by dressing him as a woman. Tango reunites with Cash, and they obtain Rakeen's address from Tango's commanding officer. Tango and Cash apprehend Rakeen and trick him into telling them Perret's name. If it sounds like we're being really harsh in this movie, I want to take a step back and say Stallone and Russell are very good. They're very charming. They're undeniably charming. Up until this point in the movie, I was still riding the high of seeing these two on screen. They do have a magic, but things fell apart here. At this pivotal moment, the film is proving that it's not a good action movie. It's not a funny comedy. It's writers that have money, but they are completely fucking lost on what to do. We get Tango and Cash. They're dangling Rakeen by his ankles from the foot of a high rise. And this Englishman just won't name his employer. He'd rather plunge to his death. He's like, just let me go. I like the view from up here. So what do? They hoist him back up and they decide to play bad cop, worse cop. And how do they do that? They strap a dummy grenade to his head. And then when that doesn't work, they pull a page out of the Lethal Weapon playbook and they're going to have Tango play like he's crazy, right? And then he drops the grenade down Rakeen's pants. This entire scene, it is pointless. It is stupid. It's just like the monster truck rally we later see at Perret's headquarters, where cars are just driving around in circles. This is not choreographed in the way you might expect from like a Mad Max kind of movie where you're getting an exciting carnage of these vehicles, but there's an objective, right? Here, there's rockets launching, they're jumping ramps, but none of it makes any sense. Like you said, Big D, this is like the fireworks finale of the 80s where everything is just blowing up.
Oh, it's Rocket League. Some of those trucks are remote controlled. It's out of control. It's crazy and it's glorious. It's why I think people remember it. But we talked earlier about trying to pair up actors and it works, because they're different. But I think here it's oil and water. If you tried to interchange Stallone and Kurt Russell, let's mix up any of their iconic roles, right? Kurt Russell could never do, let's just say, a Rambo.
No.
You could never have Escape from New York with Stallone.
Actually, yeah.
You think so?
I mean, it'd be a very different movie.
Big Trouble in Little China.
No.
Because they're kind of odd, and I could see that both being big stars, they tried to like curtail the movie and the scenes to each other. But that scene at the end, that works because it's at least action. It's exciting. There's land like movers. There's monster trucks. It looks like an X Games with motorbikes and monster trucks, and it just looks wild.
But it's like they didn't know where they were going, and the building is clearly right there. Why don't you just drive to it?
Gee, it's like when you're playing video games, right? And you see a specific item that you can interact with. Every time I saw a pile of barrels, I knew they were going to explode and shoot in the air. Anytime there was a glass like cabinet on the side with china, or I knew someone was going to kick it.
It's the Silverado effect.
And Gene, it's one of the things it does well. And we haven't touched at all at this point on Kiki and Cash, their romance. We get a scene here where Tango walks in. They're going to reunite. And the couch is kind of obscured. You have Cash is on his back and Kiki's on top of him. And it's obvious what they're doing. It is the Austin Powers. You can't see, but you're going to think that there's something dirty going on. So you know it. And I'm like, oh, fuck, this is going to be tired. Hell no. There's no way that they're going to have him walk in mid-stroke and we're going to see Kurt Russell naked again. So I'm like, they're going to just do the joke. But they push it to a level that is over the top, and I was shocked. It wasn't just like, oh, that feels good. Oh, what are you doing? And he walks in and he's like, hey, that's my sister. What they do is he walks in and he peeps for a little bit to see what's going on. And you get Kurt Russell. He's like, lower. And then Kiki says, lower, harder. Oh, move it around real slow. Don't stop. Oh, I can do this all night. Prove it to me. Faster, more, deeper. Oh my God, I can feel it. It's going in harder. It's almost in. God, it's all the way in. And that's only when Stallone says something.
Two things for listeners at home. One is Big D really put on a performance for you guys. You only caught the audio part of it. He was actually writhing and thrusting on camera. But in addition to that, as a person who is marrying a physical therapist, I can tell you that on any adjustment that's ever been done on my back, even though we love each other and very sexually attracted to each other, those noises never have come out. So although Big D feels like they pushed this to a place he never expected and got some comedic value out of it, and I know I'm taking this movie way too fucking seriously, I was so appalled by how predictable and telegraphed this joke was. And I thought the further they pushed it, the less entertaining it was.
Boo. Boo.
Well, Cash's friend, we're getting the emails are coming in right now. Big D's our favorite. Gene took Tango and Cash seriously.
I'm becoming a tango apologist.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, Cash's friend Owen lets them borrow a high-tech assault vehicle to storm Perrette's headquarters, but Perrette has kidnapped Kiki and set the building to explode. Tango defeats one of Perrette's henchmen hand-to-hand, while Cash stuffs a hand grenade down Rakin's pants. They encounter Perrette in a hall of mirrors holding a gun to Kiki's head, and both detectives shoot him in the forehead. They gather Kiki and barely escape as the building explodes. Big D, we've watched enough action movies, especially from the 80s, to understand that action movies need great villains as much as they need great heroes. In Jack Palance, we haven't really talked about him so far. He plays Perrette. It's a pretty big name to have as your villain in a movie. They tried too hard to make this drug kingpin, Perrette, like too interesting. He's too idiosyncratic. And they ended up creating a cartoon character. This guy makes Bond villains seem efficient and subtle. He can't just have the guys killed. He needs to humiliate them. He doesn't want to make martyrs of them. And he has to have them dragged, as we mentioned, to the prison laundry and then tortured in tubs with live wires. When Rakin pulls that live wire out of the electrical socket, I'm like, oh, he's just going to zap them on their bodies. And then I said, God, please don't let them be chained up over tubs. And sure enough, they were.
Isn't it required that like electricity goes into water, water touches skin? They're wearing full like Timberland work boots. I don't even think their feet are getting wet, but it touches the leather. And because Jack Palance is badass. I think he's great. In the first Batman, as he plays the crime boss, there's something about him, or City Slickers. He's great. And I started to think, I'm like, you know what? When was the last time that we had, and we've had some since, but let's go back to 80s and 90s, come up with a really well-written and performed American villain?
The Joker.
Yeah, but he was written, that's like that was written in the 30s in the comic.
Oh, got it.
Come up with something original from this time, because it seems like they just all fell back on the same typical trope. You get a foreign accent, a turtleneck, a ponytail, and that's it. You throw them out there, because here, I thought the movie was, again, lean into it. Become a parody of that fact that the villains are always like in Commando. Oh, cutting a little kid's throat is like cutting butter, whatever the hell he says, as he's wearing that fishnet outfit and looking ridiculous. I'm thinking they're going to address that. Cash, they're going to get killed in the prison. And he says, I don't want to be killed by a limey jerk-off. I want to be killed by an American jerk-off. I thought they were going to go into that like, hey, you know what? International criminals are not what it used to be. It would have been so easy to do it.
I think they were trying to. They just failed in the execution because, again, with Perrette, he keeps doing these weird things to make himself notable so that people would talk about him after seeing the movie, right? Like he's putting rats in his mouth because he's weird. Or his ultimate solution to killing them after sending out waves of monster trucks and sandrails is to, and I still do not get this, blow up his own compound. That's his solution to get rid of two guys, is to blow up the compound. And then to make himself even quirkier, he takes the time after the self-destruct sequence has been initiated to draw a literal color sketch for them that he leaves. It's like a bomb exploding and it says boom in Comic Sans. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Well, he's got a rat maze under his bar top because I guess he puts his rat in there. Also, Gene, who builds a funhouse mirror maze in their office? Does that come up in meetings? They're like, hey, you know what, Gene, you haven't been too good in this meeting. Go into the Hall of Mirrors, please. Gene, 2 minutes in the Hall of Mirrors. Get out there.
I'm glad you brought up that Hall of Mirrors because we need to talk about the problem with Kiki. She gets dragged in this Hall of Mirrors by Perrette, but she is a pawn throughout this movie. Teri Hatcher, doing her best as a young actor to be sexy and funny and charismatic and bring an independence to this character. But in this movie, she doesn't get to do anything. She gets dragged into a Hall of Mirrors, as you mentioned. She dances badly. She's drumming off beat to Yazoo. She's massaging a stranger, being accused of fucking random cops by her controlling brother. Then she gets the razor held to her throat. And after all that, what is her end? She gets to witness Tango and Cash negotiate over whether Cash can date her. This woman has been through hell. And her resolution is smiling and saying, I think you guys just don't want to admit that you work really well together. It's abuse.
I think she's wanted. That's why she went on the tour. Because I don't know. That's not a dance tour. She said she's going on a dance tour. That's like a cabaret. That's like a That's like she's working at a strip club. That's the
What
next
was
step.
that club?
I don't know, but it looked like it was obviously Sheena Easton, that she was playing the drums to some
yes.
bad like Miami like vibe. And again, it would have been funny if you had a knockoff Prince come out on stage like, ah! That would have been great. You're making, it's better than what we got because she can't dance. The drums are terrible. She's not an exciting performer. And it makes me wish HBO, and we live in the age of like the reboot, right? And HBO now is giving us who asked for it? I don't know, a reboot of Harry Potter as a 10 season. They're going through all the books.
What?
It's becoming a television series. They're going to do like a 10 season, I believe, to cover all the books. They're recasting all of the characters. There's also rumor that Twilight is also going to get a full like treatment. HBO, please give us a gritty Tango and Cash reboot. Give it to us. Or a parody. Think Oz and The Wire mashup in LA. We deserve that.
Oh, they do actual detective work.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna mix that in, Gene. It's gonna be Oz, The Wire, and True Detective. They've already got the formula for the odd couple in True Detective season 1. Bring them back. Bring back Woody. Bring back McConaughey. Let's do it. Tango and Cash.
All right, Frank, now's the time when we give our Shat score to Tango and Cash. A Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is starring in a movie where everyone is compelled to say your character's name at least once a minute. 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It is realizing you probably should have just killed the cops like Quan said before they toppled your drug empire and shot you in the forehead. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Tango and Cash?
So, Gene, we've been accused lately of being too close in our scores and being too much on the same page. So I've shielded my eyes from any of your comments and what you might give. So I'm going to try to come at this fair. I've been a bit of a defender of this film. And I know it's coming from a place of love. I know what it could have been. I know what a couple years later with a different director and a different script, but it was painful. And anybody out there who questions it, this movie is just short of about 2 hours. I watched it twice. The first time I watched it, I didn't know it was an action comedy. So my entire breakdown was like, this is a joke. Those guys flew through the front of the windshield. Why is Stallone's gun so small? I'm embarrassed for Teri Hatcher. Because I didn't know it was a comedy. I thought it was just a bad 80s action film. So I watched it again to see if, I watched it ironically, Gene, to see if there was some parody in there. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I won't ever watch this movie again in my life. There'd be no reason to watch it. You out there, go to Google, look up some of the scenes and watch them on YouTube. So it's pretty bad. I got to go 3.5 wipes.
I am going to come in a little bit harsher than that, actually. And Frank, I love you. I'm sorry I have to do this. There are only 3 reasons, in fact, why this movie isn't a 5-wiper. Stallone, Russell, Hatcher. They saved this movie. All 3 are just too pretty, too charming, too likable to constitute full-on diarrhea from Tango and Cash, but they are operating in an oppressively bad film. The writing stinks. The action scenes are sloppy. The jokes fall flat. Not even the urban assault vehicle, and we're suckers on this podcast for cool vehicles. Not even that urban assault vehicle could pull this movie out of the Shat basement. It's a 4-wiper for me.
Whew.
And with 4 wipes for me and 3.5 wipes from Big D, that gives us an average wipe score of 3.75 wipes for Tango and Cash.
So, Gene, with a final wipe score of 3.75 wipes, that ties this in the 270 spot with Labyrinth, Robin Hood, Men in Tights, Lady Hawk, and Ice Pirates. It is slightly better than The Last Starfighter and Christmas Story, and slightly worse than It, Trading Places, and Jingle All the Way.
I think that's being kind, honestly.
I do too. I do.
Frank, this is a testament to how we feel about you, buddy. Because I think those movies are better than this.
Yeah, I think I'm wrong, Gene. Gene, I'm immediately feeling guilt here. Can I do a rewrite or
no? You got to show that we have diversity of opinion, Big D. Because you're at 3.5, and I was at 4.
I just felt like
we're very different people.
Oh my god. Okay, See, and Ash, I know Ash would have loved this film. This is right up her alley.
Yeah.
This would have been like a half wipe for Ash, so it would have balanced it out. But I don't know. We got to maybe come up with some way to incorporate, something from our listeners, long time, who can no? You say no?
See, I thought about that, like having a vote where people could add to it. Here's the thing. With all these movies, the key element to rating them is rewatching them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It would be a popularity contest. People would think back to what they thought of the movie when they watched it when they were a kid. You got to put yourself through the pain to have the right to score these movies.
So listen, I support instant replay. I support technology in baseball. I have to. I can't be a hypocrite. I can't let this stand, Gene. You've already come at me for some of my previous scores, and I know our listeners are holding me accountable. I gotta go 4. I don't care if we're twinsies in this. It's the right thing to do.
I mean, I set the precedent for adjusting your score, so I can't judge you for it.
That's it, people. I'm doing it because otherwise, at some point, we're going to get a movie that's borderline, and we're going to be like, "This is now tied with Tango and Cash," and I'm going to immediately be filled with guilt, and I'm just going to question my decisions in life. So I'm going to do it, people. I don't care. 4.
I think a good litmus test is actually Ice Pirates, because when you ask if a movie is more entertaining or less entertaining than Ice Pirates on its own is not a great movie, but it is certainly better than this.
Oh, so much fun. So much fun. So I immediately feel better. I feel relief. I can go to sleep at night. Gene, with a wipe score of 4, that now ties us in the 278 spot with Real Genius, Arachnophobia, Gleaming the Cube,
Yes.
The Crow, Inner Space, Blue Thunder, and Caveman.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that.
Agreed. Frank, that's 4 wipes for Tango and Cash. And I hope Face Off does a little bit better. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, a high school hero returns from the dead and takes revenge against the psychotic drag racers who killed him. The murdered boy transforms into a high-tech spirit in black leather and sets out to do battle with a gang of desert-based car thieves led by a man who destroyed him. Commissioned by James H., came out in 86, and I would just guess it had a budget of maybe $7,500.
It goes a long way in Tucson.
It does.
Long way.
Black cans of spray paint, Charlie Sheen, and some cocaine.
Some leg braces, LED strips on a shotgun.
Hairspray.
Yeah.
Need that.
All right. Well, thank you, James, for commissioning our upcoming movie. Thank you, Frank, for commissioning Tango and Cash. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatthemovies.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all the information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all the information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Ash, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
An evil force took his life. An unearthly power has brought him back. He is a phantom, a wraith, a cosmic spirit given another chance.
Are you new in town?
Yeah. Who's the kid?
I turned my back, and the next second he was there. Like magic almost.
You ever seen one of those before?
Let's just add it to our collection.
There's a kid out there using his car to kill people. Not that it's such a big deal, since it seems to be your gang he's got it in for.
Hold on! Grab the shotgun, Mama Luca.
A wraith, man! A ghost! An evil spirit, and it ain't cool!
What are you doing? Packard, stop!
Get in the car!
What are you doing, man? You
Get out of my face, Burger Boy! You wind up dead like your brother!
Hey! Who is that guy?
I don't know, but whoever he was, he's weird and ticked off.
I see his eyes, Loomis!
Who are you?
Who are you?
The Wraith. If you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to fear.
So as you guys are listening to this at home, it will be, I believe, June 14th. So my bachelor party will have happened at this point. Big D and I are going with some friends to New Orleans. And one of the things that happens on Bachelor Party is you inevitably start naming things, right? We need a name for the van. We need a name for the crew. I think Utopian Rape Dungeon is our apartment. That's what we're calling it from now on. It's the URD, the ERD.
The ERD. Okay, glad
How
I could
did you
help.
even come up with that?
No, I don't. That's the way my brain works, unfortunately.